Hello and welcome to another deck profile by the Backup Chargers. I'm Faceless Menace. Today we're going to be going over Fire Slimes. It's been a little bit since we've seen a lot of Fire Slime success. However, I have come up with the current meta brew for DTR season that has come with some success. Got first place at a local store champ, 18 people with a couple heavy hitter competitors today. Or not today, but this last weekend when I was attending it. So let's go over the list. So first of all, we are Fire Spirit, specifically Spirit of Serene Fire. You want to be Serene Spirit because you kind of just need the extra recover at some point. The Glimpse is very useful, but you're more so just trying to make sure you have that lineage release on hand. For champions, we have Sylvia 1, 2, and 3. Pretty straightforward. Sylvia 1, 2, and 3, because you have to get to Sylvia 3 at some point, right? Then we have for our little flex spots here, we're running Terrafring, Tengu, and our Divine Relic is Quicksilver Grail. These are the only things we can bring out before we hit level 3 in this list. Don't really need more than this. Tengu is very good as a backup charger that we can effectively just eat with the Ethereal Slime. Terrafring because I'm expecting a decent amount of aggro. And Grail is the best Divine Relic for Slimes, hands down. I know some people like to play GCR with it, but I personally prefer having that utility from Grail. Then for our remaining cards, we are looking at Stone Scale Band. Proxy Vault has not been kind to this card, but it's still very effective at filling your grave, and sometimes the fast speed activation does matter. Gaia's Blessing, the card that goes with the Stone Scale Band. More important than Stone Scale, I will say. There's some matchups where you will banish the Stone Scale off Ethereal. Gaia's Blessing, you almost never want to do that because the value you get from banishing 4 Slimes out of grave and being able to just get an infinite value out of the top deck is very strong. Verdant Scepter, Horn of Beast Calling, and Covenant of Thorns. Covenant is a Grail target, very good. It's able to cost 0 due to having the class bonus, and then just being able to redirect any damage to, say, a deer, your own lustrous slime with your decided smoke bombs, etc., has a lot of utility. Horn of Beast Calling lets you have those combo turns where you're able to either hold cards up with your storm slime, etc., can let you draw extra cards, can eat your float if it's a slime eruption or limitless, gets you a little bit closer to a lethal storm slime count. Very good card. And then Verdant Scepter here is to have a better long game. This also lets you, if you put it on a Grail, lets you avoid Stifling Traps, depending on the matchup, which is a very nice little bit of utility. That is it for the material deck. Up next, we're going to go over the main deck, and we're going to just go over the non-advanced element slimes first of all. So we are playing 4 copies of Baby Silver Slime, 4 copies of Limitless Slime, 4 copies of Slime Eruption, and 4 copies of Baby Red Slime. This is a relatively low slime count, at least for Fire Slimes, because we are no longer playing Red Slime in the list. I love the idea of Red Slime, but it's always just been a little too clunky for my liking. And then being a beast would be nice for the Sylvie level 2, but I'd rather have the late game Gaia Songbird guaranteed to actually hit something I need. So for that reason, we're not playing normal Red Slime anymore. But the rest of these are still excellent. Baby Silver is a very strong card. Limitless Slime, just really great as float, etc. Baby Red Slime is our big beater. Lets us be a slightly better, slightly worse Hasty Messenger. Lets you pitch cards, drawn to memory. And then Slime Eruption has just a ton of utility all around. As a quick reminder, Slime Eruption does not target, and you don't declare how many cards you banish before it resolves. So once the opponent lets this card resolve, it's free reign on whatever you decide to target. Importantly, if you are playing against Genbu, this doesn't target, so they can't negate Lineage Release. It's not a spell, so it can get over the Spell Shroud. And if the opponent has a Resonating Fugue on their Genbu, you can respond with this after it's resolved before the attack goes through, and have just an instant kill option for that Genbu, which is crazy. Next up for our kind of card draw package, we're looking at 4 copies of Blissful Calling, 4 copies of Cremation Ritual, 4 copies of Creative Shock, 2 copies of Kind Beast Caller. I prefer this ratio of Blissfuls to Beast Callers, Forest Cake, etc. Blissful is just the most efficient card that lets you search for anything. You can't find dungeon guides with it, but that's fine. You know, you don't dig for everything in this, but it does kind of let you find cards a little bit more efficiently than other things. Kind Beast Caller is just Blissful 5 and 6. You can Cremation Ritual it, which is nice. It doesn't really come up because it's just such a large amount of influence you need to pay. Sorry, that you need to have in hand. But it's still very strong. Beast Caller being a 2/2 for 3 is relevant sometimes. It just feels a little clunky. I am considering cutting this for Expel the Departed, just to kind of change out a little bit of extra utility for removal. But other than that, I really like this package. Creative, Cremations, it's just very strong. Cremation obviously in here because one of the other uses is Storm Slime. So if you sacrifice a Storm Slime off Cremation Ritual, then you will be able to banish 2 from memory and then draw a total of 4 off of that. So pretty strong. Then speaking of Dungeon Guide, 4 Dungeon Guides. You need it. You need to banish cards from memory, etc. Good card. 4 copies of Stalwart Shieldmate. I like this card. I am not a huge fan of fluffing this list, so this is just the best option we have to work with, honestly. Being generic float's very good, especially in combination with our 2 copies of Ordinary Horse. So Horse is just a 1/3 float animal. It's completely fine. Sometimes I do have to play this card and actually get it into play, which kind of isn't the best, but it also, if you don't have anything else off your level 1, then playing Ordinary Horse, having the opponent either respect it or having it just be a 2/4 that's a little annoying to kill to sit on board for your level 2 draw is also very good. Stalwart Shieldmate, not quite, but is completely playable. And then 4 copies of Liminal Guide. This is just better float. This is what lets me cut Red Slime from the list, is Liminal Guide is actually just good in general. Level 1, if I have the option between pitching, say, a Stalwart or a Liminal Guide, I would choose a Liminal Guide over having the extra the float for the level, because I can always just put cards down that I want to banish, and that guarantees me being able to banish, say, an extra Baby Silver when I don't really need to play my little 1/1, right? So having the ability to neatly go up with the influence again and still banish a card that you want to have banished is very big. Lastly, we're going to go over the Advanced Element Slimes. So, 4 copies of Storm Slime, 4 copies of Ethereal Slime, 4 copies of Lustrous, and 2 copies of Verdant Slime. This is, I'd say, pretty standard, to be honest. It's not unheard of, that's for sure. Verdant Slime is probably the only one that's kind of unique in here, but I am also running 2 copies of that guy's Songbird. I have 16 Advanced Element cards, which isn't the best, but Serene Spirit lets me play a little greedier. If I didn't have Serene Spirit, I would feel a little bit safer on 14 total, but Serene Spirit makes it a little bit just... I'm allowed to be greedy. That's really what it is. I'm allowed to be greedy with Serene Spirit. Verdant Slime is really important to pop little things. Popping opposing Tariff Rings, etc. is kind of nice. Being able to pop Sensor if I'm sitting on some float for an important combo turn, etc. is really nice. Just lots of little targets in the game right now. There's some weapons that can kind of just win you the game if you do that, because putting them off tempo for popping a weapon and being a taunt is pretty good. And if your opponent makes a mistake of, let's say you go to pop a Bauble of Scarcity or Safeguard Amulet, then if they respond with it, it'll still get the buff counters, because it's worded, if you don't destroy the target regalia, it gets 2 buff counters on it. So your opponent can kind of just play into themselves, and you get to force them to pop it early, and you get a 4/4 taunt, which is insane. Songbird, again, is guaranteed to find one of these 14 cards, which is really good. That's also why we're only running 2 Verdant, and why sideboarding you really want to aim to take these out if you're going to add in the Twilight Slimes, which are inside. But that is the main deck. Not too dissimilar from how it was run before, other than we're now only running 16 total fire cards for our Serene Spirit, which is huge. It's not anywhere near as bricky anymore. Liminal Guide is our, quote, brick, but I don't mind that. Our Gaia's Blessing doesn't find it as often, but having the extra advanced slimes makes up for that. So I just feel the deck is a little more consistent and just feels better. Again, the kind Beast Scholars are kind of the only thing where I'm not 100% on, but the rest of the list feels solid. I love this list. Even the Ordinary Horse. Ordinary Horse is... I've won games because I had Ordinary Horse, which is insane. Next up for the side deck, pretty straightforward. We're running 1 copy of Nullifying Lantern, 1 copy of Nullifying Mirror, 3 copies of Staggering Strike, 2 Resolute, 1 Heavenly, and 3 Twilight Slimes. I say straightforward and then I bring out all this. So, Lantern is really good into water, against Ginbu, etc. Mirror is specifically for wind. It's supposed to go against Veiling Breezes, hold it up to just be active on the entire opponent's turn for Windmill Engineers, etc. Staggering Strike is specifically for Tristan. Being True Strike is also kind of nice into Cheshires, but you have Ethereal Slimes and Storm Slimes and etc. to deal with Cheshires. So that's not really the best use case, but it is an extra option if they happen to be on a list that needs prep and is running Cheshire for some reason. Two copies of Resolute. I would love to put this up to 3, but I just don't have the space. But it's a very good inclusion if your opponent's on aggro. 1 of Heavenly Guide. Point of advice here, if you are in a matchup where you are literally only just bringing in a Heavenly Guide and you're looking to cut a card, just shuffle in the extra Heavenly Guide. You need all 4 Dungeon Guides in the list, just in case they don't find theirs and they hard level, etc. So you really just want to find the Heavenly Guide in addition to, if need be. Lastly, the 3 Twilight Slimes. Really good into Fire Dao Chan. Good into Merlin. Good into Kong Ming. Good into Vanny. It's just good all around into those specific matchups. It's just a little too fringe right now for me to mainboard these. I would love to have these mainboard again, but otherwise this is fine. If you want to go down to 2 Twilight Slimes, that is technically fine. I just prefer 3. It's a cleaner swap if you do 2 Twilight for 2 Verdant Slime, and that does help, but I like going 3 for the reason of if you have 3, it's a little easier to find 2 in your hand at once. Because if you have 2 at once, they give each other Spell Shroud as well. And then some of those decks that get locked out by Spell Shroud just are fully locked out of winning the game at that point, which is excellent. But yeah, that's the sideboard, main board, and material deck. Fire Slimes plays really nicely into this current meta. It does really well into Merlin, does well into some Kong Ming variants, even though that doesn't come up too often. Does well into Fire CL. Water CL is not quite as tested. The only real bad matchups are decks like Genbu, and if you play against very good players that know how to play around it, but at the same time, this is a good meta pick right now, just because not many people have gotten practice with the current decks into Slimes. So it kind of gives people, if you're on this list, it gives you a better opportunity to catch them off guard. So if you're going to try this at locals, etc., this is a good time to do it. This is also not a very large upgrade over the Recollection. The biggest things are obviously going to be the Liminal Guide and Dungeon Guide, but usually you'll already have the Dungeon Guide as the very first big upgrade for that deck. Liminal Guide's a little pricier right now, but other than that, so just Tengu and Grail, and that's kind of it. So it's not quite as much of a budget deck as I'd like it to be, but it's a pretty affordable one relative to everything else, as long as you already have the Liminals and the Grail. So that being said, thank you everyone for watching the video. Hope to see you next time.